welcome all. My name's Tara Hutt and I'm going to be the presenter for today. First of all, if you guys would like to introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name's Stu.
I'm Veronica.
I'm Mustafa.
Okay, so before we started this meeting, I contacted each of you and we discussed some of you have specific needs. So I understand, Steve, because you're in a wheelchair, we made sure that we had our service, we have our ramp, so it's easy access for anyone that's in a wheelchair. They're able to get into our community service. And I understand that you wear glasses, so I made sure that we had a copy of the presentation so you're able to have a look without no problems. And Mustafa, I've got an interpreter just in case, but I did know that you didn't inform me that you did need one, but just in case there is something that you do not understand, he's there just to be able to make you understand and etc. Alright?
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to, so today is about a communication plan. So we're going to go through our communication plan. I've also got a presentation slide there, and also there's ones in front of you as well, so it's easier for you guys. So the reason for this strategy is to implement updated policies and procedures to ensure the communication strategies with the organisations are met to our standards. If they're not met to our standards, then we need to ensure that they are met to our standards, otherwise. To improve on existing communication both internally and externally, to ensure that communication between both the internal and external stakeholders are done in an efficient and a professional manner. So today, in this communication plan, I've written a guidelines of everything that we will be speaking about. So we're going to go through why we need the communication plan. I just went through that just to make sure we're updating our policies and procedures. Who are the internal and external stakeholders, current official communication channels, the key messages that we want to get across, the communication barriers, restraints, disabilities and special needs, the tools and resources needed to implement the communication plan, the budget required, conflicting interests, ways to prepare and respond professionally, implementation of the protocols, improvement strategies, staff requirements, and also questions and answers at the end. Okay, so on our next page we have our legislations. So we've got our privacy and confidentiality legislations. Does anyone know what privacy and confidentiality legislations are? No? Yes?
It's a legislation like a legal requirement that all information or something like that is kept private and confidential.
Yep.
Like going to the doctors, they've got to confidence.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll go through that just so we're all got a thorough knowledge of that. So privacy legislation requires certain information to be kept confidential. So say, as Mustafa explained, said, that when you do go to a doctor's, any information that you do say to them has to be kept confidential. They cannot go out and telling people what's wrong with you. They have to keep that on the lockdown. Unless consent is provided to disclose the information to another person. So you have to give consent, so you have to sign either it's verbal or written, you'll have to sign a consent form. It'll say that you have gave permission for this particular person to be able to give out some information. If they don't have that permission, then legal action can be taken and they can get in very big trouble. Confidentiality is an important concept for those in the community service. As a service worker, you may need to discuss with your manager which is acceptable as long as the client's information is kept within that organisation. So it's kept within your manager, it cannot go to anyone else. Everyone understand that? Yes? Okay, so we're going to go through our next one. So that's just to stop discrimination. So does anyone know what discrimination is?
Yes, but I'm sure you'd be able to word it better than are good.
Yeah.
Treat someone different based on their looks, age, or whatever.
Nationality,
Yeah.
disability.
Absolutely. That's great. You've answered my question there, so I don't need to go through that. So we're going duty of care. Does anyone know what duty of care is?
You're in.
No? I'll go. So duty of care refers to a person's obligation to take reasonable care to avoid injury to another person where it can be foreseen. So as a community service worker, you need to make sure that when you have a client that anything that you do cannot harm your client. Because if anything that you do to harm your client can come back to bite you. And it can cause big trouble for yourself because you've put that client in danger of harm. A duty of care, you're right. A duty of care exists when a person's action could affect another person, such as your client. As a community service worker at Southside Community, you will need to take reasonable care to predict any harm going to that client, as I stated. So a breach of duty of care, a breach happens when it has been proven by an employer that you have not taken the appropriate action and the care to be able to help assist your client. So if that's breached, as I was saying, legal action can be taken and it could result in you losing your job and not being able to work in the community service sector. I'm sure everyone has maybe heard of it, mandatory reporting. Yes? So mandatory reporting is the legal requirement to report suspected cases of child abuse and neglect. And also there's also one for aged care as well, if any harm to any aged care and if stuff like that you have to report. All states and territories in Australia have a mandatory reporting that they need to follow in New South Wales. The mandatory reporter, which is you and me, will need to report if we suspect the following abuses. They are physical, sexual, emotional, neglect. In New South Wales, even the smallest amount of child abuse needs to be reported. Even exposure to domestic violence needs to be reported. As I was saying before about informed consent, laws require professionals to be specific with clients with any limits of confidentiality. An example may be that at Southside you may need to disclose personal information to ensure that the young person that you're dealing with, is safe. So if you want to disclose any information to your manager, or if you need to disclose any information to anyone else, you need to make sure that you have that client's written consent. As I was saying before, it can either be verbal or non-verbal. So it's the best to have written consent so that you're able to say in the long time coming that they say, oh, I didn't give consent to that. You say, I've got this written form where you have signed and you have dated that you have gave permission for us to speak and disclose this information. Everyone understand about informed consent? So we're going to go through our internal and external stakeholders. I wasn't sure if you guys were a bit confused when I was talking about the purpose of the communication plan, that who our internal and stakeholders were. So we'll go through that. Does anyone know of any internal or external stakeholders? Can anyone think of anyone?
Internal and external?
Yep.
Residents, clients,
Staff.
Yep,
Staff
perfect,
members,
yep.
businesses.
Yep. So staff members, health professionals, clients, volunteers, government officials, other professional service providers, future clients, unions, the clients' families and friends, board members, and etc. So communication is, our key messages that we want to get across is communication is essential in life. Communication is everybody's responsibility. Communication makes our service run smoothly, professional and efficient. Communication involves following the policies and procedures in all the areas of our service. So breaking barriers, we're going to go to that. There we go. What do you think would be some communication barriers when talking with clients? So what can you think on the top of your head of what a barrier could be when you're talking with a client? What could a barrier be? Do you think like if they don't speak English?
Yeah.
Yep. Hearing?
Sight.
Yep. Disability, absolutely. So
young child.
yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Very little.
Very little, yes. So the understanding of English, clients' difficulty in reading or writing English, deaf or blind clients, culturally diverse, special needs or disability, elderly clients, single mums and dads, low-income families, public transport, location, lack of time and resources. So clients with minimal English or no understanding, they would have difficulties with that barrier. Clients' inability to be able to read or write, deaf or blind clients, culturally diverse, both internal or external, clients with a disability or special needs that are not able to access our services, elderly clients may not be able to access the services we offer. Single parents may find it hard to access our services. Low-income families may not to be access our services due to low income and also due to certain circumstances. Public transport or the location of our service may be difficult to get to. With public transport, it may be hard for those to get to our service if they require, so say it can be really hard for them to come to our service if they've got no public transport to get there, if they have to do a face-to-face meeting. It can be very difficult. So that's why we try our best that we try and do Skype calls. So if they can't get to our service, we're able to cater for them even though they can't come. Lack of resources to maintain efficiency and the communication process. Also, the lack of time that it may take to make the service efficient. So the next one, it says official communication channels. So our official communication channels are emails, newsletters, memorandums, internal websites, policies and procedures manual. Tools and resources needed to implement the communication plan. So all these things that you see are our tools and our resources that we will need to make sure that our communication plan is efficient. So the tools and the resources needed for our communication plan are emails, newsletters, brochures, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, Tumblr, Google. We also got intranet, websites, local papers, text messaging, iPhones, letters, meetings, fax translators, interpreters, our policy and procedures manuals. They are the things that we need to be able to make sure that our tools and resources that we need for this communication plan, if we don't have them, then we're going to be a bit stuck in trying to get our communication plan up and running. Our budget considerations are wages, printer facilities, interpreters, staff hours, and the training for staff and the volunteers. So printer facilities, we need to be able to have paper and ink for all the necessary documents, brochures that will be needed for our communication plan. Also newsletters to make sure that we've got those resources that we're able to get those stuff out there to our community. Interpreters, we need to make sure that we have enough in our budget for a cost of interpreters. So anyone that does have a difficulty in speaking English, we have that interpreter there, so they're able to translate for them, so they can understand. Wages, we need to make sure that we have enough wages for administration, staff, and also our everyday staff. This is so that they can keep up with our communication channels and our paperwork. Staff hours, extra hours for staff to ensure that all avenues of communication are taken care of efficiently and in a timely manner. Also to ensure the roster for our workers working those shifts. next one. So our competing interest. So our competing interest, so basically we're going to be holding regular meetings with other community service providers, or, meaning that any other community services out there besides Southside, there is other community services out there besides Southside. So we'll hold a meeting to make sure that we can ensure that we're not running the same programs and we're not duplicating the same programs. We want to make sure that we can have a range of programs out there so we're able to help assist all people in the community. Just making sure that there's no double ups of stuff, so we're all on track of everything and making sure that we don't do the same. Protocols and processes. So we've got your policies and procedures. These must be adhered to at all times. We've also got publications. You cannot, publications is basically like copyright. You cannot use someone's image, writing or words without that person's consent, and you need a proper reference, everything. Case notes. Anything you do with a client must be included in that client's case file. This must include who you're involved and what has happened, and it does not get repeated. Confidentiality and privacy applies to all stakeholders, staff and the volunteers at Southside. They deserve the same respect, and their privacy is just as important to us as the clients. The communication plan will be the policies and procedures folder and must be amended to every time. And also, if a change needs to be made, we need to make sure that we get approval from our manager before doing so. Improvement strategies and feedback processes. So we've got questionnaire, we've also got phone calls, and we've also got emails. In questionnaires, we want to make sure that we're allowing a section for our community to be able to, they can let us know that if they have any complaints or if they think that we need anything updating. Making sure that our websites and everything are up to date, so we're allowing anyone to post their feedback all over the place. Phone calls to ensure people are all satisfied with our service and find out if there is anything other assistance we can give, or they can give us encouragement of what they want us to do. Providing email addresses to all stakeholders to be able to voice their concerns and to comment on what they're happy about. We're going to go to the next one, mentoring and coaching. All staff and volunteers need an initial training session to ensure that they understand the changes to the communication policy, and a refresher course on how to ensure privacy and confidentiality is maintained, and that they all understand what copyright means and they adhere to these laws regarding in all these areas. Regular meetings, both one-on-one and in group sessions, will also help to ensure everyone is doing their part in our services, communication plan, and to make it run smoothly and efficiently. Does anyone know what a risk management is?
A way you manage potential risks in
Yes.
your business?
And how do you think we can do that?
Think before you do.
Identify it first.
Yep. Identify the risk first, making sure you know if you do that risk, what can happen. So risk management is understanding potential risk and dangers that may affect the staff, clients, volunteers, basically anyone that does step foot in our workplace, making sure that we're understanding that the potential risk. We've got to make sure that the insurance and compliance regulations and the legislative requirements, different types of risks need to be dealt with in slightly different ways, depending on what the risk is, depending on how we would deal with that incident. So this is determined by professional judgment at all times on how to solve this issue. And has arised, the best risk management tool is self-awareness and strong knowledge of your duty of care responsibilities. So that's everything for today. And I hope you guys learned something, and that I was able to, if you didn't know what certain things were, you now know. Did anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I did. On your mentoring and coaching, you said that we have to do a refresher course. I'm just wondering how often we have to do that.
The refresher course won't be, so sort of just, it's just, the refresher course is mainly just for the privacy and confidentiality. So it'll probably be like maybe every 4 to 6 months. So it's not going to be
Okay.
as regularly, because you know you're not gonna forget what privacy and confidentiality is. So just every 4 to 6 months, or maybe even every yearly, just to make sure that everyone knows.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, I've also left a questionnaire there, so if you could fill that out for me, that would be great. Thank you. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you.